Welcome to Flow 360. I'm your host, Dheeraj Adhikari. As always, I have a new guest here today for this week. We have Luis Ortega.
Argueta.
Luis Argueta, sorry.
That's okay.
He's the Vice President and Community Loan Officer for the First United Bank.
Right.
Welcome to Flow 360.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. We kind of had to struggle to schedule this, but
That's okay.
thank you. Thank you for giving me your time.
I appreciate you searching for me and kind of, making your availability always there. So
Yeah, absolutely. As we get it started, I would like to ask you about Guatemala, where you're born and raised. Could you tell us about your childhood?
For sure. So as you know, we spoke a little bit before this, and you learned that I moved to the United States from Guatemala when I was 15, to be exact, 1989. So during that time, there was a situation in Guatemala with the political and stuff like that, where it was better to look for a better situation. So I am an immigrant, and basically. One of the things that we also challenged at that time is that there was a decade of the 80s to the 90s. So individual coming to the United States without any English speaking abilities, and then switching from having friends to no friends, and then from there, a different era, if you start looking for 1980s to 1990s. So that was my first experience here.
Wow. So as you mentioned, not having friends and all that, how was the culture here in the U.S. in terms of how you're used to in Guatemala and life here in the U.S.? What did you find was different?
Well, we were blessed that my parents always provided not only housing, but clothing, food. We were in a desperate need of situation, but there was always a better future. And the experience that I have from there to here is that a lot more access to things, right? Easily access to things. One example, as a teenager, you might want to buy a pair of sneakers, right? But then you have to save a year or two, or having somebody, helping you, or have to work for it, right? In order to buy those items. Here it's not that you didn't have to work for them, but the cost was more flexible. You could, instead of over there saving for a year or 6 months, here with a month and a half you could have done it, right? So that was the experience. And also having to learn of the different locations. Weather was also different, because if you start thinking, I moved to New York at that time,
Really?
in Long Island. So so then dealing with snow. I'd never seen snow before, right? Dealing with the cold weather.
It doesn't snow in Guatemala, huh?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not.
Okay,
So they call it the country of eternity, spring. Because the spring is always there. Always is either 75. Worst case scenario, rains, right?
Okay. So how was your first time seeing snow experience?
Now that you asked me, I was laying down on my bed, and there was a window above my head, and I started seeing sprinkles, and I thought that were mosquitoes. Honestly,
that was the first time.
That was the very first time that I saw that, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then I started looking at the door, and I was like, everything was white. So then everyone that I was living with, my sister and my nephew, and they said, "Oh, it's snowing." So that was my first experience with the snow. Now, that was a good experience. The other experience is when you have a car and then you have to dig it in, right? Dig it out of it.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of family support and family being together, when you guys moved here, I'm sure there were times that you might have ended up in a different location in terms of knowing where you're headed or whatnot. How did you guys adjust to new lifestyle as a family?
Well, mostly, my experience was by myself, right? Not the whole family, travel with me.
Okay.
My sister was already here.
Gotcha.
And I came with my sister to live with my sister and her husband and her kids, right? So that was my first experience. It wasn't traveling with dad and mom and everything.
Yeah.
It was traveling more by myself
Uh-huh.
with coming to have the support of my sister's family, right? So that was the very first thing. But the experience that you start looking at is, as a teenager, you had friends, you had other family, like I had my godmother, my godfather, everybody that supported me when I needed something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you come to the United States and all by yourself at a 15-year-old, then it can't really work, right? You have to, you're forced to kind of go to school,
Yeah.
right? So then you start the idea of, okay, what is it at school? Am I gonna be able just to talk? I mean, I'm gonna listen to English all the time. How am I gonna learn it? So you got all the anxiety
Yeah.
of what's gonna happen after that. And then you see that there's programs, like, for example, I was lucky enough to go into an ESL program that taught me a lot. The
Yeah.
teachers there, the good thing about that program is that they will force you to speak English, right? If you really couldn't understand and you did, then they'll actually find someone that actually can translate and help you with it. But most of the classes were with English with a teacher that could speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of like my experience too. It was really hard. Nobody was there to translate for me, but the teachers would even try to Google Translate and
Right.
pronounce something similar to me, where I would be able to catch what they're trying to teach me. So I can relate to your ESL class experience. Those were
Gotcha.
handy, right?
Yeah.
They come in handy for
Well,
lifelong.
you start thinking in regular teachers, right? Then they are very helpful. They're always there for you. They motivate you. But there is something in the ESL teachers that they always go one point further,
Yeah.
right? And that is the care and the love. There's some others, right, that they still give you the care and the love, but they were super strict, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I learn better from them too. So
Yeah. Okay. I want to get it started with talking about careers. So could you tell me about your first job, or how you get it started with your work life here in the U.S.?
So being at 15 at that time, there was really not much that I could do as far as work, but there was always the opportunity, just like a teenager, right, that you can go and do part time. So my first jobs were always where, like, a restaurant, Burger King or something like that, that you can put up part time, because I was going to school at that time, so I had 8 hours of school.
Okay.
Then from there I moved on to a different company that was, as you start learning more English and start learning other people, right? Then
your communications becomes better,
and then you start having a community of people that that can get you better opportunities as well. So there was a company that was called, oh my God, it just escaped my mind right now.
It's all right.
Can't remember that,
It's
but
been
it
a
was
while,
it was one of the companies that did the sweepstakes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Publishers Clearinghouse.
Okay.
I remember that. So I worked for them for a pretty long time until I decided to go into something else. Now learning a little bit more English, now being a little bit more skilled, right? There was an opportunity now going into the career that I am now. I had a couple other jobs after that, but going into the career that I'm going now, I started working for a credit union, right? And as a credit union, you started just as a teller, starting to deal directly with the members, because they're not customers at that time; they're members, right? And then as you get more skills and you get better at it, they give you more opportunities and more and to actually do other things around.
What made you want to get into banking? What was your motive in terms of why did you want to get into banking sector?
There wasn't something that I wanted to get into banking. I think that it was the situation of, hey, here's a job that actually you can do, and you want to try it and see if you like it. And I did, and then I started getting more experience, and as experience grew, then
Mm-hmm.
there were different other opportunities that you can go in. And as you know, you're a mechanic. You go and you know other mechanics, and then you get better at that, right?
Yeah.
And then the same thing. You're a teacher. You do, or like yourself, you teach
Mm-hmm.
tennis and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. So you know other instructors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the same thing in the banking industry, you know.
Okay. In terms of how you saw banking prior to you getting in
Mm-hmm.
and how you see it now, what do you find the difference in terms of, well, I guess even then and now,
Mm-hmm.
there's a big change in, you got e-cards and everything now, right? So what have you seen in your time working in the banking sector?
Oh wow,
The changes.
technology.
Yeah?
I mean, I think that just like everything, we have the iPhones now, and we have, I mean, nowadays you have, if you still have a check, right,
Mm-hmm.
then you can take a picture and you make a deposit on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Most of your income is usually direct deposited
yeah.
electronically, right? You sometimes you use debit cards, but you can actually now use Zelle, you can
Mm-hmm.
use Venmo,
Mm-hmm.
you can all these other apps that you can transfer money. Back then, it's either cash or check, right? You would go to the bank, you would actually get cash, then you
Yeah.
go and spend it. I remember one time that we went into, not we did, but there was a situation that a customer came into a Burger King,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at that time, that lady came into Burger King and wanted to pay with a credit card, and everybody started laughing at her. They're like, "Why are you crazy? Why are you coming to?" Now
Everybody, yeah.
you don't even do that. You just put your phone on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's one of the changes that had happened.
Okay, okay. Um, as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
what was Luis's dream? What did you want it to be when you were a little kid? I'm gonna
Mm.
make you think here.
I always like to advocate for others. I
Yeah.
always like to, and my son got that from, I think that from me too, because I always want to please others and make them comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I didn't want to get into anything politics or anything, but definitely, a source of what we're doing right now,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
community
Yeah.
service, elderly, make sure that they're fine, make sure the kids are fine,
Mm-hmm,
because you saw when I was growing up a lot of need.
mm-hmm,
I was blessed that I didn't have to do that. But whenever you actually rode a bus in
mm-hmm.
Guatemala, you could see kids asking for money, get on the bus
Yeah,
and
yeah.
ask for money and sing and jump and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you start thinking realistically, one day I can guide them, and
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of, and I think that this is kind of a little bit connected on it
Mm-hmm,
because then like I can guide them and I can, and the same thing is my passion in banking because I could, in banking now is turned into a lot of profit, right?
mm-hmm,
And how you actually turn into a business into profit, right? And
mm-hmm,
then how
mm-hmm.
you guide them to do a profit.
Yeah.
But my passion is how do I get that individual that doesn't have the knowledge that I have,
Mm-hmm,
that I can guide them the way that I would do it,
mm-hmm,
right? So, for example, if I have a family that can never see a penny in their bank account,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
But if you just teach them how to budget,
Yeah.
a month's budget, right? Letting them know that going to the supermarket, going to Walmart, whatever, it doesn't mean that you have to spend all the money that you have,
Yeah.
right? So and then making sure that you have your bills lined up, and sometimes you don't even know that the bill is coming up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Organization, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those are skills that I love to give out.
Okay. I want to ask you now, as a banker or person in a bank,
Mm-hmm.
are you satisfied with what you do and how you have your day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And one of the reasons why is because I can utilize all my experience that I have, right? And then, in the back then, you start thinking as a teller, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if you started as a teller, your job it was only interacting with clients, making deposits, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that your cash drawer balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn in and then you go. at the level that I am right now, the difference is that I work with a book of business, like
Mm-hmm.
a portfolio of clients
Mm-hmm.
that I have to grow and I have to make sure that I take care of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it comes to a different level from being just a client to, okay, we had to make sure that the clients that are under my portfolio are being
Mm-hmm.
taken care of, right?
Okay. Okay. Any advice for our high schoolers, young kids who might want to get into banking? What are some of the advice or word of wisdom that you have for our young folks?
I would say that if your motivation is not only making money, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's what everybody looks for
Yeah.
when you hear or see a bank,
Mm-hmm.
and you start looking at the suits, you start looking at the whatever you see.
Mm-hmm.
Behind of that is that the satisfaction of being able to help others with your knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
because there's different routes in banking that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You can be in management, right? You can manage a banking center. You can be as a investing advisor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody showing how to grow their money that they already have,
Mm-hmm.
or you can be a lender, right?
Okay.
And then have the bank also make money. That's what I do. I'm a lender.
Mm-hmm.
So that those are different areas of the bank that you can always grow. But one thing that I want to warn them is that it does come with years of experience, right?
So you got to be patient
You got to be patient.
with the job.
I agree.
Yeah.
You have to
Okay.
be patient. It's not going to happen in 1 year or two.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. I think that that's something that a lot of the young folks lack in terms of where they're at. They want to make money quick,
Mm-hmm.
but like you mentioned, it's going to take more time, and they have to be patient and gain those experience as you get promoted. I'm sure in banking
Mm-hmm.
sector you get promoted to different positions as you go, right?
It's correct, and then you have to be relentless because
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be so many times where they'll tell you, this is not what we want,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to redirect you the way that the economy, the profit, the
Mm-hmm.
bank, whatever what they're looking for. So you have to adjust,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to have that mentality that you're always going to be, a change. You're going to have to be pro for a change.
Okay. All right. I want to ask you any advice for our people, not just related to bank, but like life advices and from your own experiences going up and down in terms of different careers or just moving here from a different country. Any word of wisdom, advice, life advices for young folks?
There's some people that have it that there's a lot of values in the family
Mm-hmm.
that they grow with those values. Some are not lucky to
Mm-hmm.
have that. So the advice will be if you do have those values, don't lose them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you were not lucky to grow with those values as a family, now is the time to start.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions about Guatemala now.
Yeah.
In terms of as a kid, is there something specific food that you miss from Guatemala?
Oh wow! I mean, being in Texas, and everybody that lives in Texas, they know that all Latin America, mostly Mexican food is there is sauce, all the
Mm-hmm.
type of sauce, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Guatemala, you have different types, different than Mexico, and then I love like a chicken with sauce. I love meat that is prepared with care, with love.
Mm-hmm.
Those are different type of foods that I
So you
that I do
absolutely
miss.
miss
Uh-huh.
the food, local food from Guatemala.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Any specific place that you miss in Guatemala? I'm not sure. Have you been back since you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've been several times. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we've been back as to tour the whole country
Mm-hmm.
or as many places as we
Yeah.
could. I think that being home to me, back with my family, my sisters, or
Mm-hmm.
with neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
the difference from here to there is that neighbors can live there for 60 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And now it's not like the parents or the
Mm-hmm.
grandparents and more the kids, the grandkids that are still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that will be something that I'd enjoy every time that I go back is to, we lived in that house, or actually that my parents' house, still there, and they're still there for 60 years, right? And I know the neighbor in front, I know the neighbor on the right side, on the left side. I mean, you stick your nose out, and they already know, hey, Luis is here, So,
Yeah.
and then they start coming out to you and say hi, and now it's not, like I said, it's not the parents or the grandparents, is the kids, that either they're younger than you, but they know that you're the son of, right? And those things.
Yeah. What are, for anybody who wants to go visit Guatemala, what are some of the places that you suggest them to go see?
We just did a tour back and the reason why is because my son is about to get married, right? And his future wife wanted to learn about Guatemala. And there is a magic place that's called Antigua, Guatemala, right? So it's the original city, Guatemala City, but during the 1700s, there was a volcano eruption that destroyed the city, right?
Okay.
And they moved that city to where it is now. However, that's still preserved the same way as it was. So the is protected by the government, and they are not allowed to do any changes unless improvements are allowed to, preserve the location. It's a magic place for you to go see, because not only it brings you back to the colony, right? But it's visited by so many people. I mean, you see people speaking English. You get credit cards. You got hotels. You got Airbnbs. But it's in an area where you're like, okay, this is a different place.
Okay. Last question, fun question for you. If there is one place anywhere around the world that you could go visit, where would that be, and why?
Okay, that's a tough one. I mean, I've been to Europe. I've never been to Egypt.
Egypt.
And the reason why when I say that is because if you see in Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, and ever, you have the ruins, right? The ruins are those pyramids that are done by the Mayans, Aztecs, Incas, etc. Well, Egypt is a different, similar idea, but it's a different location.
Gigantic ones, yeah.
Yeah. So that has to have happened even before this. So I need to know what's going on there.
So that's why you would want to go to Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Luis, I'm really thankful for you. Thanks for sharing your experiences, and I hope somebody watching us might be motivated. They might want to get in the field of banking. So I'm very thankful to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.